It's common knowledge nowadays that a lot of what you see on social media is fake. People will use filters, angles, and only show the highlights of their lives. But what you might not realize is that this fakeness goes way beyond appearances. Because social media is full of hypocrites. People who pretend to be someone they are not. People who give advice they don't follow and tell stories that are not genuine. Deceit and even manipulation are getting more common. Social media is the perfect platform for people to create these fake personas where they can project an image that has nothing to do with who they really are. There's plenty who will preach ideals they don't live by, but I also know people who will hurt and betray others in real life, but then post as if they are the most virtuous person alive. Telling stories where they are always the victim and others are always the villains. We can easily be misled by all this fakeness, and it's harmful because it tricks you into trusting someone, the advice they give, and the stories they tell based on who they are pretending to be instead of who they really are. So in this video, I'm going to give you a reality check about all the fakeness and hypocrisy that's on social media and how you can see through it. The hypocrisy I've seen online blows my mind. It's one thing to not necessarily follow the advice you give all the time, but claiming to be something you're not is deceitful. There's a difference between someone who struggles with insecurity and someone who deliberately crafts a fake persona to manipulate others. I know people who are genuinely cruel to others, but will then pretend like it's the other way around. I know girls who will act like angels online and encourage each other to only date the perfect gentleman, but in reality they are just narcissists who will cheat on those same men. I know guys who preach about faith and control, but they themselves are controlled by their desires. I can't even count how many lies I've seen anymore. Why? Because these people don't actually care if their content or message is genuine. They only want to appear genuine. Usually the real goal is validation, attention, or sympathy. Maybe they want to attract someone of the opposite gender, or sell a course, or just feel better about themselves. And we tend to fall for it because we don't want to assume the worst out of everyone. Look, if someone needs to go on social media and lie to feel better about themselves, then that's their problem. But when these people start to gain massive followings and deceive all of their followers, then that's when we have problems. Because the truth is, everyone has their own mistakes, insecurities, and struggles, and you don't need to show them all on social media. But you also shouldn't pretend to be perfect and set impossibly high standards for people to meet. That girl who shows off her slim body is actually struggling with an eating disorder because of her diet, but she won't tell her audience that bit. She'll just show her body. And that guy who talks about how in love he is with his girlfriend and posts all the perfect dates is actually on the verge of a breakup, but you won't know that. So what we have now is all these picture perfect ideas and standards of what life should look like when the people encouraging them don't even follow them themselves or have any idea what they're talking about. And the problem isn't that the advice given is always invalid just because they don't follow it themselves, because sometimes the advice can still be valid. It's just that blindly following it is not very smart. Chasing an unrealistic ideal because of what some fake persona has posted on social media will only leave you disappointed, to say the least. This is how so many of us are made to feel like we are not good enough, because we're holding on to standards that are not even real. As I've mentioned before, this fakeness is not just limited to general happiness or life advice. It can be far more malicious too, such as believing lies about specific people. Fake people will manipulate situations, twist the narrative, and paint others as villains so that they get to be the victim. And this happens all the time on social media, but it goes beyond simply misleading advice. It's straight up manipulative. You might end up siding with someone who is lying out of sympathy, not knowing that they are lying. And this can really damage reputations and relationships. And when you eventually learn the truth, you feel totally blindsided and disappointed. It changes how you view people online, and it makes you wonder how you can believe anything that you see or hear anymore. And that is the problem with all this fakeness on social media. Now let's say that you want to see through all this fakeness. The thing is, you can never be 100% sure that someone is genuine when you see their posts online, but you can at least bear in mind that they may not be. I'm not saying to be totally pessimistic and assume that everyone's lying, but also don't do the complete opposite and assume that everyone's truthful. When I see certain posts online now, I can take value from the message without automatically assuming that the person behind the message is authentic. If their words help me in some way, then that's great, but I don't waste my energy idolizing them or trying to copy their lives. The only way you can know if someone is telling the truth or if they follow their own advice is if you know that their actions consistently match their words, but I guarantee that for most people you follow, you do not know that. So focus on the message and not the messenger, because you actually have no idea how they treat the people closest to them, or themselves even. As for the more personal profiles and people who tell stories involving others, it's a bit different. But if you know that real life is rarely so simple, that one person is always the hero or always the victim, then is it not worth at least questioning people who make themselves seem so? When someone's social media profile makes them look too perfect or too pitiful, it's often a red flag that their stories and advice is twisted to suit their own agendas. I know this is getting deep, and of course everyone's entitled to their own opinions and is allowed to share them, but all I'm saying is watch out for people who never seem to take accountability, and that goes beyond social media. At the end of the day, don't let social media dictate how you see yourself or others. Take what's useful, question what's not, and remember that behind every post you see is a person. A person who you can't say for sure follows their own advice or is telling the truth. Don't let follow accounts or appearances blind you to that reality. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, leave a like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you in my next one.